Hey you guys, so today I'm going to be talking to you about an introduction to matrices. So I'm going to show you what a matrix is and then show you just a couple of key terms you need to know as we begin using matrices for our next unit. So first of all, a matrix is an array of numbers. And that just means it's a group of numbers that are arranged into rows and columns. And remember, rows are horizontal, so they go left to right, and columns are vertical, so they go up and down. So our first example, we have this matrix here. So 1, 2, negative 3, 7, 0, 4, 0.5, 9, 13. And notice with this matrix that the whole thing is enclosed in these square brackets. And that just helps us recognize that it's a matrix when we see it. So when you're writing and typing your matrices, make sure you're including those square brackets. And one of the key features of a matrix is its size. When we describe a matrix, we describe it based on the number of rows and the number of columns that it has. And that's called its size. And when we write the size of the matrix, we always write the number of rows first and then the number of columns. And when we write it in this form, M by N, which looks like M times N. We say it's an M by N matrix, where M is the number of rows and N is the number of columns. So for example, in this matrix right here, notice there are 1, 2, 3 rows, and then 1, 2 columns. So 3 rows and 2 columns means that this would be a 3 by 2 matrix. Now, next, just a quick word about notation. When we write a matrix, we can describe it using a capital letter. So for example, we have this matrix here, B equals, and then this matrix. So we're describing that matrix using a capital letter, which is going to make it easier for us when we have to substitute it into problems so that we don't have to go through the trouble of writing out all the numbers every time we want to use that matrix. Now next we have entries in a matrix, and this is where it can get a little bit confusing. So the entries in our matrix are the numbers that show up in that matrix, so we call those entries, and we can describe the entries based on the location of that entry in the rows and in the columns. So for example, if we have this matrix A, then for each entry in that matrix, we describe it using a lowercase letter a, so the same letter that we use to describe our matrix, but lowercase. And then the number of the row and then the number of the column, both of those are going to be written as a subscript. So for example, this first entry right here, we describe as A11. So A, since we're in matrix A, 1 because we're in the first row, and another 1 because we're in the first column. This next entry is A12 because A, we're still in matrix A, 1 because we're in row 1, and 2 because we're in column number 2. And then that pattern is going to repeat for the rest of the entries. So we can use this to find entries in a matrix. So if we're asked to find A23 and A32 for this matrix, then we can actually go through and find those. So A23 tells us we need to go over here to this matrix and look at row 2, column 3. So we go down to row 2 and over to column 3, and that gives us 8. So 8 would be A23. Next, it asks us for A32. So A32 means 3, we need to go to row 3, so all the way down to the bottom, and then column 2. So we need to go over here to column 2, which gives us entry 21. So 21 would be A32. So that's just a short description of some of the features of matrices. Now there's an assignment for you up on Edge Elastic, so head on over there, check that out, and work through some of these things that we've talked about here in this lesson and try and get some practice yourself solving them. Have a great day, you guys.